Hello, my name is Prince Ahmed, and this is my project Phase 3 implementation. I implemented a simplified version of a payroll management system. I implemented the employee database, a user account table, and a job department table. Each employee can go into exactly one job department. A job department can have many employees, however. Each employee has one and exactly one user account, which can only exist if the employee exists. You can see the indexes here. The index for this employee table is the primary, EMP_ID. It also has a foreign key, which references the job department, which is job ID here. You can see the various different data types and so on. I created this in my SQL workbench, which lets me just make a new table like so and fill it out. To make this ER diagram into a database, I click on Database, then Forward Engineer. This lets me take this ER diagram, connect it to a target database, and generates the code for creation. You can see how there's user account, job department, employee, and so on. I already created it, so I won't continue with that. I created a table here, my database. You can see how it has 3 tables on the left-hand side, table count of 3, each of which has 50 entries that I generated. I will show that shortly. Each table has the entries that I mentioned earlier: address, age, job ID, employee ID, and so on. They have indexes, which are primary, foreign key, or other primary keys, depending on the table, and they reference it properly. I generated these entries, where you can see there's 50 each, through a C++ script here. These includes are just C++ stuff. I generated through handwriting 5 unique addresses, 7 unique first names, 7 unique last names, and 3 possible genders, male, female, or they didn't tell you what gender they have. I made job ID, employee ID, and age. This is to make the employee database, or employee table, sorry. I created a header. I generated each of these, and for each entry, each line, I printed out their first name, last name, gender. I chose a random value from each of them. I chose an age between 25 and 40 years old. It starts at 25 years and it goes up to 40, which is 25 plus 15. For user account, I also opened up some CSV files. I filled it out, and I used employee, job ID, name. Email is the first name followed by the job ID taken from the employee database, or table. And I kept filling them out. The default password is the last name followed by a job ID, and so on. I did the same thing for the job department data, where I filled out the job ID, job department, name, description, and salary range. And I did that. So now I show how my employee database is filled out with these values. I took that CSV and added it by right-clicking on one of these, clicking on the Table Data Import Wizard. I can just choose my CSV file and then fill it out as such. I can erase the table before I import, and so on. And as these are filled out, I did the same thing for my job department. How you can see the job ID, job department, the employee's name, what they're doing, and their salary range. The salary range is unique for each department, although I could change that if necessary. Same with the user account. We put employee ID. The username is just their first name. The email is their first name followed by their job ID, or their job ID. It could be the employee ID if I wished. and the password, which is their last name followed by their job ID, and then their create time, which is just chosen in a random date anytime this year. I can perform queries on these three tables. For instance, I can get the first and last name of everyone who works in the QA department by joining across the job IDs and filtering based on what job department they work at. And as you can see, it returns this many. I can collate how many people work in each job department by grouping by job department. QA has 10 people, marketing has 15, 12, 13. This might be useful if you want to see how many people work in each department and who works at each department. I can check for all user accounts made before a certain date in case they need to be ported over due to updates in some other system. And this can show how we've got create times January and February. I can change this to after and it would show everyone who was created after that date. I can also check for the latest account created by someone of a specific gender by connecting again through their primary keys or foreign keys and filtering based on what gender they choose, male or female. You can see the latest account there. I could also show the employee IDs and names of anyone in a certain job department. I can order by job department as well. In this case, I chose everyone with an employee ID less than 2000, and you can see how that is true. And I can just sort by various indexes. This one would sort by two keys. First the job department, then within each job department it sorts by employee ID. So you can see how it increases. Alright, and those are my 5 queries. These were my databases and how I filled them out. And that is my project phase 3 implementation.